And now on the line is John O'Callaghan from Dog Advocacy Ireland. John, welcome back to Near FM.
Hello, Darren. How are you? Thank you for having me on Near FM again. It's a pleasure.
Okay, John, a tweet of yours a couple of days ago inspired me to get in touch with you about doing this interview today. And we will talk about what you wrote about in that tweet in a couple or few minutes. As today is our first interview on Near FM since last December, though, John, could you start off by reminding our listeners, that is for those who don't know, about who Dog Advocacy are and why you set the organisation up?
Gladly, Darren. Yes, a few years ago, I was obviously always interested in dog welfare and animal welfare in general. But what I was seeing was the absolute negligence of dog stroke animal welfare protection legislation enforcement. And I emphasize the word enforcement. We have legislation, but there's very little enforcement. And my view on that is it's pointless in having legislation if it's not being enforced. It might as well not be there in the first place. So I kind of refer to this legislation as lip service legislation. So that's what prompted me to set up this Dog Advocacy Ireland to address the appalling negligence of dog stroke animal welfare, but obviously I'm particularly interested in dog welfare in Ireland, to our shame, and we'll get onto this a little bit later, but just to touch on it. To our shame, Ireland is puppy farm capital of Europe, where we have hundreds of puppy farms as we speak right now. There are thousands of dogs being held captive in prison in these horrific conditions, just purely for greed. It's a breed for greed culture. The dogs or the bitches are being used like ATMs, and nothing is being done about it by those authorities. So that's those are the reasons why I set up Dog Advocacy Ireland, because there are many wonderful organisations down dealing with rescue and rehoming, as you well know. But there was nobody, no organisation seemed to be dealing with the governance of dog welfare legislation and the lack of enforcement and the negligence of dog welfare.
Okay, you mentioned puppy farms there. This is a big question, John, but can you give me a summary, please, of as well as puppy farming, the main lack of governance areas you see and campaign on when it comes to dog stroke animal welfare?
Well, the problem, Darren, is it's difficult because there are 3 government departments actually which has responsibility or accountability for dog welfare in this country, which means it's totally and utterly fragmented, it's dysfunctional, and that's what's contributing to Ireland holding this unenviable distinction as puppy farm capital of Europe. I mean, the Department of Agriculture is involved in some areas of the Animal Health and Welfare Act. Then we have the Department of Rural and Community Development, which is responsible for the Control of Dogs Act. And then I suppose we have the Department of the Environment, which is has responsibility for all local authorities. And local authorities issue these dog breeding establishment licenses. And there is literally no governance structure and no inspection policy in place, Darren. So that is contributing hugely. So our authorities and our government is contributing hugely to the mistreatment and the abuse of dogs.
Okay, John. What are you calling for so that the resources are there to be able to deal with these issues?
Well, there are many areas again. Darren, this could be easily dealt with. First of all, Dog Advocacy Ireland is calling for a sole body that would have sole responsibility and accountability for dog stroke animal welfare. And I would suggest that we can no longer rely on government departments because they have proven to be unable or incompetent in carrying out their duties under the Animal Health and Welfare Act and the other acts I just mentioned. So Dog Advocacy Ireland would be calling for an independent animal welfare authority. And, it's possible, people will say immediately, well, where's the money going to come from? Well, there are many areas. I mean, currently, only 22% of dogs are actually licensed, would you believe? So obviously the authorities aren't pursuing that. That's a source of, and if dog owners felt that they were getting something in the area of dog welfare and animal welfare, they would gladly pay their license. I've no doubt about that. But an awful lot. There are 49% of Irish households own a dog in this country. And the vast majority of those people are very responsible dog owners. And I'm sure most people are apathetic and despondent at the lack of dog welfare legislation and enforcement in this country. People are saying constantly, things never change. Nothing will ever change in this country. So Dog Advocacy Ireland intends to change that, to force meaningful change in dog/animal welfare.
Okay, I think that's a great idea. What you said there should be an animal welfare authority. We talk about that again in a minute or two. But just to come back to the tweet I saw from you on X a couple of days ago that inspired me to get in touch with you for this interview, John. The Department of Agriculture are actually promoting the idea of people buying puppies, aren't they, John?
Which is regrettably totally irresponsible. Yes, they are. They're advising people in their wisdom to go and see the breeder, to visit the breeder, and to see the mother and all of that, which is all well and good. But the reality is, and this is an indication of how out of touch the Department of Agriculture is. Our pounds and rescue centres in this country are overflowing to capacity with abandoned dogs. Stray dogs that have been abandoned by irresponsible owners. The pounds are absolutely overflowing. And for a department that has responsibility for the Animal Health and Welfare Act to be actually encouraging people to buy puppies in this dog welfare crisis is just utterly reprehensible.
Okay, we're talking there about there should be an animal welfare authority. I think that would be fantastic if we had one of them and it was well resourced. I interviewed the lady from My Lovely Horse a couple of weeks last week.
Martina Kenny.
Martina Kenny. And she was saying as well, I don't know if you agree with this, but she says the Gardaí should have an animal crime unit. Would you support that as well?
Oh yes, and that's on the Dog Advocacy Ireland website. By the way, Darren, if I get a chance, in case I forget, I would encourage your listeners to log on to dogadvocacyireland.ie. I know it's a mouthful, but it is what it says on the tin. So it's dogadvocacyireland.ie. Yes, in answer to your question in relation to what Martina's comments, it's on our website actually, Darren, that we suggest that an animal welfare unit be set up in every Garda district. Now, we're not talking about every Garda station, but we are talking about every Garda district. Because the dog population, there's 1,040,000 dogs in this country, and I already mentioned the high level of ownership. 49% of Irish households own a dog. And, there are so many dogs being mistreated, abandoned, stray dogs and all of that. So there certainly does need to be more of an emphasis on the legislation and dog/animal welfare. So a Garda unit in every Garda district would be very beneficial.
And if you had a unit in every Garda station, would this be a full-time unit or a part-time unit, or what do you think?
Well, again, Darren, I'm saying it's not every Garda station.
Yeah,
Garda district, which would have responsibility, obviously, for their local stations. But yes, just repeat the question to me, Darren.
It's a bit. I was thinking it'd be every Garda region. I don't know how many Garda regions there are in Ireland, but would there be a need, you think, for a full-time Garda animal crime unit, or would it could be part-time? Or
I don't feel there's a need for full time, but there has to be a recognition of the negligence and the mistreatment of dogs in this country. Like no politician, in their wildest dreams, could condone Ireland shamefully puppy farm capital of Europe. And our government and our authorities with responsibility for dog welfare are aiding and abetting that situation shamefully. So that's why it's important that we attack this from every reasonable angle, and a Garda unit, not like that would be dedicated on a daily basis, but that there would be an emphasis on dog welfare.
I think if the Garda headquarters as well had to, even if it was a small team, I think the Garda headquarters should have an animal crime, animal welfare unit. Even if there's only 4 of them in the unit, but they work full time nationally, I think that would be great. Do you?
Good suggestion. Good suggestion. Yes, Darren. I agree. Well, it's just, I suppose, there are 3 key areas where Dog Advocacy Ireland are particularly focused, and we've already mentioned the puppy farms, and I've gone through that with you. The other one is responsible dog ownership, and Dog Advocacy Ireland is suggesting and recommending that there be a dog ownership theory test, in the same way as you might do a driving test, that people are actually suited to owning a dog, and that they're aware of the responsibilities associated with owning a dog. It's not just like going into the shop and buying a bar of chocolate. It comes with responsibilities attached. And I think to have greater responsibility for dog ownership, a dog ownership theory test would be very helpful. And the third one, third item area of concern would be an incentivized reduced cost neutering, Darren, because despite the fact that our pounds and rescue centres are overflowing with abandoned dogs at the moment, we're in a dog's welfare crisis. So to have puppy farms and dog breeders still breeding dogs, is just shameful. It's just irresponsible. So an incentivized reduced cost neutering would help in that situation.
Oh, idea. That's a good idea. That's a very good idea. And we're saying there about theory tests. I think it's sad the way a lot of people who have dogs don't bring them out for walks every day. Like, I know a couple of people who have dogs. Like even when I was younger, people older than me, and they brought their dog out once every few weeks. Like I think that's totally unfair. Do you?
Absolutely. I mean, that's just irresponsible. People like that should not have a dog. It's dogs need exercise. They need fresh air. They need to sniff in the grass and do what dogs do. So to have an owner who keeps a dog in the back garden or in a shed for weeks on end and with no exercise or no stimulation is just crazy.